Well, Harmy, last week it looked unlikely, didn't it? I thought it did anyway. The disparity between the net run rate of Scotland and England was so big that it was going to take something extraordinary. It duly delivered it. I didn't see England bowling out Oman for 40 and chasing it down in 3.2 overs or whatever it was. It just incredible, really. And, people say, well, what were Oman doing in the World Cup? That isn't the point. England did what they had to do. They stayed patient when it looked like the game against Namibia was going to be rained off. And now suddenly all is well with the world, or is it?
It is, I think. We obviously there's a lot of doom and gloom after the Australia game, a lot of negativity, especially by, yours truly. I was very upset after that Australia game. And it wasn't really sort of performance related. It was more decisions made. But there's no question. This team's got huge amount of quality. Irrespective of whether you think the emerging nations or teams like Oman and Uganda should be there, England had to do something special. They've got special players and they got the job done. Now you're sitting there now. I think the Super 8's draw is more favourable for England than anything else. So I think they turned the sort of negative narrative around very, very quickly, which I expected them to do because of the quality of players they've got on their side. And I'm just pleased on, Jonny Bairstow. Yeah, he got runs as expected to because he's a quality player and he's been playing a lot of cricket. But I was really pleased that Harry Brook got runs. It's been, I wouldn't say a quiet, coming back into the England team. But to see Harry Brook score runs, I think that would give the England cricket team a huge amount of confidence because it's been about the 1, 2, 3, 4. But when they, so much don't fire, they still need that middle order to fire. And Brook, along with Ali and Livingston, are so important. And I think getting Harry a score, 47 off 20 balls, that pleased me more than anything else.
Yeah, let's remind ourselves, Jonny Bairstow made 31 off 18. England posted 122 for 5 in 10 overs. I was slightly concerned that they might set off too quickly. 10 overs is still 10 overs. It's still 60 balls. But in the end, they paced it beautifully. And this was Jonny Bairstow afterwards.
Obviously not your best game the other day in Barbados, but you got quite a lot of flack afterwards. I wonder whether you were surprised by that.
I don't know. You can ask the guy sat next to you.
No, but I mean, you've had a long career at this stage. You obviously were aware of it then. How do you react?
Look, people are allowed to have opinions. And yeah, look, it's part and parcel of it. It's not the first time that people have had a go at me, is it? So yeah, you take it on the chin and you crack on. But look, at the end of the day, there's a reason why I've played for so long and there's a reason why I'm in the team. So maybe sometimes the opinions and the views that come through certain people's eyes are incorrect and maybe need to look at themselves.
Ouch.
That's Jonny Bairstow in need of a hug again. Harmy, look, the world doesn't hate him. I mean,
no.
Does he need to have this mindset to perform at his best?
If he does, I'll slag him off every single time because I don't think I don't hide the fact that I think the world of Jonny Bairstow. I think he's an exceptional talent. As a person, I really enjoy his company. I've spent quite a lot of time with him whenever we're on tour and around. He is, for me, probably England's best multi-format cricketer. And he has been for a number of years. His record recently has not been great, granted. It'll be interesting to see what his next sort of pathway shows when he comes back because, there's a lot of talk about the wicket-keeping place up for grabs. Jonny might find himself out of the team. But the one thing about Jonny Bairstow, that's the Red Bull team. One thing about Jonny Bairstow, when his back's against the wall and people start having a go at him, he does come out fighting. And when he comes out fighting, he's a dangerous animal. We've seen that in the IPL, didn't get picked, got 100 or 40 balls, came back in. And again, if, George DeBell's question has really sort of pricked his ears up and got his back rattled, got him back up and he's rattled a little bit and he gets 30 off. Well, he get 31 off 18 balls. If he keeps doing that, I tell you what, I'll ring him up every morning and tell him how bad he is, how poor he's playing and everything like that, just so we can see Jonny Bairstow coming out fighting because he's a huge asset to the England cricket team. And one I think will need managing over the course of the next 3 months, 6 months, because let's be fair, you look at Jonny, because he's so good as a cricketer, he's playing in all formats. He's literally been living out of a suitcase for 12 months. He has been on the road for 12 months. He's become a father. And that, no matter what kind of human being you are, you could be the strongest person in the world, it still will have an effect on you. And I think that's why we've seen a little bit of up and down form. So fingers crossed, he continues, fighting back. And if he wants to fight against the media, great. Because if he does, more often than not, Jonny comes out and scores runs, and England are going to need him in the Super 8s and the knockout parts of the tournament if they get there.
I'm really interested in what you said about England having the favourable draw, because there could be an argument made. Well, look, India and Australia are in the other group, so that automatically makes you think that the other group might be easier. We'll talk about the groups with Mel Farrell again a little bit later on, but just your thoughts there, because India, Australia, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. A lot of people were saying that India and Australia will feel that they got lucky there. South Africa, England, West Indies with the USA. So 1 out of South Africa, 2 out of South Africa, England, West Indies, you would think. And I have to say that rarely in ICC tournament history will a team have played so poorly for 4 wins as South Africa have done. So I think they are absolutely lukewarm. Their bowling's been fine, but it was a club pitch in New York, and Anrich Nortje is always going to be a handful with uneven bounce. But I think they're struggling. So England, West Indies there. I mean, I can't see the USA causing another upset.
No, I don't think the USA. I think the USA will be over the moon. They're getting to the point. They're getting. I think the next phase of the Super 8s is a celebration for USA cricket and what we can achieve if we throw some money, some finance and some structure towards our cricket. I think this could be the coming of age of the USA cricket, which is great from an ICC point of view and global events and cricket around the world. That's a tick in the right box. I don't see them going any further. I think South Africa will. I think the West Indies are the ones. I think England might be fighting with the West Indies to knock out. I think South Africa on a better pitch will get through, and I think it'll be England or the West Indies, and I fancy England to knock the West Indies out. I think South Africa have struggled on some bang average surfaces, some really bang average surfaces. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. I know I get into trouble saying what I think, but let's be fair. I've just spoke to John Norman, Jared Kimber about this T20 competition, and has it been a success? It's been a success because it's been in America. It's the only thing it's been a success for, because the surfaces. I mean, it's one extreme, IPL scoring 260. I get that. That is not what we want every single week. But to have 110 players, 109. I'm sorry. These surfaces some of them have been dangerous as well. So I think as the surfaces hopefully are going to get, I think they'll only get marginally better. I don't think we're going to get any roads by any stretch of imagination. But I think when they get that little bit better, I think you'll see South Africa come out strong because they've got a decent batting unit. And then I think it'll be between England and the West Indies. And I fancy England to pip the West Indies. So for me, in that pool of that side of the draw, I think South Africa and England to go through for me.
Okay, West Indies, England for me. Just a reminder that England's next 3 fixtures: the West Indies on Wednesday, South Africa on Friday, and the USA on Sunday. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll head to Antigua and look ahead to the other side of the Super 8 draw and speak with broadcaster and cricket writer Mel Farrell. Mel, you're in Antigua, and it's no doubt glorious weather. Let's talk about Australia and their side of the group. Just to warn you, I am going to ask you about Josh Hazlewood and the defence launched on his behalf by new ball partner Mitchell Starc about those pre-Scotland game comments. But how are things in Antigua, and is that side of the draw as you anticipated?
Well, I mean, probably yes, except that no, because US are going to be here playing the first match in Antigua that I'm doing, which is a surprise for many people, but a really wonderful one. But as far as Australia go. I mean, their first match here is against Bangladesh, and you probably thought it was either going to be Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, or, to be fair, Netherlands coming through that group. It was a really difficult one. And the fact that it is Bangladesh, Australia have got a lot of spin to contend with in the Super 8s. So they've already been preparing for that. They bowled 12 overs of spin in their game against Scotland, which, you know, that's not what you would necessarily normally see from Australia. So I think they're pretty prepared for their section of the Super 8s to be very much a trial by spin. And you say the weather is better over here. I did arrive. Gosh, it was so wet yesterday that honestly, the roads, there were pools of water by the roads, and all the cranes. I must have seen about 200 cranes along the side of the road inland. So you obviously had that match that was very nearly a washout between England and Namibia at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. So it comes like it does here, comes very quickly, comes out of the blue. There's kind of no forecast that can really accurately predict it. So that might play a little bit of a part in this side of the world. And I just think Australia are ready for it. It was a tough encounter against Scotland, but the way that they just flicked the switch in the last sort of 5 overs of that match showed, I don't know, just them flexing their muscles, I guess. And they've got some pretty big biceps, emphasised by Marcus Stoinis, of course, who was right in the middle of it.
Yeah, he travels with his personal fitness trainer and chef. But Mel, look, I'm going to leave you and Harmy to discuss this. Do it as quickly as you can. I've got a little bit of a bee in my bonnet about those comments from Josh Hazlewood. I don't mind Josh Hazlewood having a laugh. Look, I mean, it's human nature to have a joke, make a joke about adversity and failure and breaking the law and that kind of thing. It's but maybe not in a internationally televised press conference. And then Mitchell Starc, after the Scotland game, saying, "Oh, you guys blew it all out of proportion." I don't think that those comments needed their proportions changing, to be quite honest. I thought it was really inappropriate.
Well, that's definitely an argument, and an absolutely valid one. I do think that in the context of a press conference, and you know what they can be like, the questions asked, it's often asked by people that Josh Hazlewood knows. And I think it was more of a conversation where he was saying, yeah, I mean, how would you do it? I guess you'd have to do this or whatever. And I don't think he was actually proposing a game plan at all. He was saying, like, how would you do it without it all blowing up in your face? And then when those things, we all know that words, when they are said, can look quite different when they're written or typed out. I do think that that's the case, and he does have a dry sense of humour. Whether or not that was the most sensible thing in a World Cup, as you say, perhaps not. But look, how would you prove it, honestly? The way Scotland played, I think it was quite disrespectful to Scotland. They're a good team. They did push Australia. Australia had to really go up a notch. I do know, by the way, that there were inquiries during that match in the first half of the chase. There were media inquiries to the ICC about whether or not they might look at punishing this because, that they were looking at, that people thought that Australia were taking it easy. I don't think that Australia were taking it easy. I think they were really, really struggling hard, Harmy.
Yeah, I think Mel and Manners, I think if I'm being brutally honest, I think I'd have said exactly the same as Josh Hazlewood. I mean, somebody asking me a question like that, I probably would have gone hard at if I didn't know who the person was. It's hard because I'm obviously miles away, but if I didn't know who the person was, I'd have pulled the person up on, are you insinuating you're questioning my integrity? I'm playing for Australia, I'm playing for my country, or I'm playing for England, I'm playing for my country, we will want to win every game. So I think when you get a question like that, I think you are open to an answer, which possibly a little bit of tongue in cheek. He's having a bit of a laugh, but I think you got that because whoever asked the question was asking it, and it was for me as a professional cricketer, I would be like, he's questioning whether I go on the field and, you know, on purpose try to, I mean, it's hard enough trying to do your very, very best, but try hard not to do your very best. I think that's, and another one towards that, Manners, is what Australia team they picked. I remember Jurgen Klopp having an issue last year or the year before where he fielded, I think he fielded 11, he made 11 changes for a game and everybody was in uproar. And you're going, hold on, you give me 25 players in a squad, I can pick them at any given time. So I think there was also a question on people getting rested and rotated. I was like, well, ICC guideline of 15 players. All 15 players should be ready to play because they're all good enough to play. So it doesn't matter who should play. So I think there were, I'm not so much getting them out of all proportion. I just sometimes when you ask you know, in my eyes, to a professional cricketer, professional sportsman, you ask a stupid question, which is having a go at my integrity about whether I'm going to try my best. You might not get the answer, you know, you're expecting. That's me sticking up for an Australian.
Yeah, well done, Harvey. It was a loaded question. It was a loaded question that I don't think.
It's a question I don't think you could win.
Yeah. I don't think any of it was maliciously intended on either side. And Mitch Starc, like players are always saying, oh, you guys blow out of proportion. And it's like it's every single one of us in the room and some of us haven't done anything. That's just what players do. They look at us as a big evil beast at times.
Jonny Bairstow's just done the same to George DeBell, hasn't he? So that's just, honestly, that's sometimes the nature of press conferences. The one thing I will say, Mel, though, you mentioned him a bit earlier, flexing his muscles. Man, as you mentioned, he carries his own personal trainer. How important is Marcus Stoinis, Mel, when it comes to, you know, that latter knockout part of the tournament? I still think that the six-hitter in number 5, number 6, number 7 could be the difference between a team winning and losing this World Cup. Stoinis he seems to be in decent form.
He's had a great tournament so far, and with the ball as well in Australia's opening match against Oman. He was terrific, and in a game where again Oman, you know, bowled really well and pushed Australia. He's one of those players where, you know, back in Australia, people are quite divided over him. I think, you know, there are a lot of people who think, well, he's kind of past his best. He had like a really good run for a while there, but maybe not so much lately. I mean, he is so valuable, and look what it does is in that sort of middle and lower order. I mean, Glenn Maxwell fails, and you've got Stoinis, and then you've got Tim David, who is another absolutely explosive batter. But to see Marcus Stoinis in there being able to bowl with bat and ball, and the ball is important as well when Mitchell Marsh hasn't been bowling in this tournament. It just gives Australia so much flexibility and confidence in that top order as well, because there's so much experience there with Stoinis. And then when he pairs with David, I just watch out. It means that they can go hard and not worry too much about the run rate, knowing that you've got two players there who are able to just go so hard at the end. And you're right, that is, I think, going to be really important in the latter stages of this tournament, having those options at 5 and 6.
Okay, just quickly, guys, we need to talk about New Zealand, or maybe we don't. Simon Doull was quite outspoken. You know, we've praised New Zealand cricket for their empathetic approach to players' travel. Doull and a few others say that actually they're allowing the players to pick and choose and to play for their country as and when they feel like it. And he says that there's a bit of a lack of commitment, and they got absolutely belted in the opening game by Afghanistan, who's the other team I want to talk about. How good are they? And, you know, Jonathan Trott, just over 2 years now as head coach of Afghanistan, they're getting better and better. And he's never set foot in the country. It's just two remarkably opposite stories.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand, who's had the most disappointing tournament? I was wondering about this, New Zealand or Sri Lanka? But New Zealand, you'd probably have to say, because of their record over the past 10 years. Are we seeing the end of kind of that golden generation? Maybe. You know, it's the last time we'll see sort of Trent Boult do this what it means for the others. They've got some great talent coming through, but they were a team that before this tournament, I thought, don't underestimate them, because no one ever picks them in their semi-finalists, and they're always there. But it's just nothing's fired for them. They looked underdone, I think, particularly in that first match. They just looked underdone, and just felt like they had a bad run in. They had time with the bad time with the weather, all of those things. So A, they looked really undercooked, and B, maybe this time is past and there's going to be a bit of a rebuild phase for them. Afghanistan, I actually had tipped them to, they were my my dark horse for the semi-finals. The way that they've performed in recent World Cups, that they almost beat Australia twice in the last 2 times they've played them in 50 over and 20 over World Cups. They I reckon, could do it this time. I really do. If they put their best game together, I do think they could do it. They're outstanding. All those young players, those young batters, at the top of the order, the potential they've shown for so long is finally actually getting results. And with the bowling attack that they've got, I mean, Faruqi, God, Harmy, you must love seeing him bowl. What a cracker he is. In addition to their spinners, they're a real shot, I reckon, at pushing it all the way.
Yeah, Jonathan Trott's done an unbelievable job with them. And I think the vocal point of having the experience of over the course of the last few years and Nabi just guiding them all, and the superstar status of Rashid Khan, I think has given the others not to slip under the radar, but have a real effort to be as professional as they possibly can and say, well, we can get to this level. And they've all come at the same time. And what they did in India was brilliant. But I think they're a real force. They are a real force. Yes, Faruqi's very, very good, but I think their batters are what I think they've always been teams. Emerging nations coming through to sort of to the full ICC status. They've always had good bowling attacks. But I think the thing that impresses me at this moment in time about Afghanistan is their ability to hit sixes, their ability to bat. They've got a team in 50 over and 20 over cricket who can put runs on the board, and when you've got the bowling attack that goes with it. Yeah, I'm with you, Mel. I think they could get that. Could be an outside chance of that semi-final spot.
And New Zealand declined the opportunity to play a warm-up game, by the way. You may have forgotten, Mel, which could have contributed to their undercookedness, or should I say rawness?
Yeah, all of those things, all of those factors. They just looked rusty and a little bit out of sorts. So it just wasn't the tournament for them. But yeah, also, I mean, you just have to kind of pay a bit of respect to throughout this tournament when we've seen the bigger teams lose and a couple of them go out. That the associates, I think I might have said this last time we were on, they're so used to scrapping. And they really have come to the party. This is the first time I've really felt like I'm part of a proper World Cup, where it's not just let's get these early games out of the way and get to the big boys. This has just been incredible, from the Nepalese fans jumping in pools to, the US, hearing the Star Spangled Banner play in Nassau County. It's felt like a World Cup, and that part of it, I just am so excited and happy about.
Okay, Mel, very, very quickly, but a crucial question. Are you staying in one of Antigua's famous all-inclusive resorts with those complimentary strawberry daiquiri machines?
Are you kidding? No. My budget definitely doesn't stretch to that, Manners, but I'm staying at a very, it's a lovely little sort of cottage Airbnb type arrangement, and the manager drove me down to the supermarket so that I could save a bit of money. I bought the cheapest bottle of rum I could, some fake home brand Diet Coke, and some sardines, because sardines are cheap. So I've got like about 5 tins of sardines and some whatever salad vegetables I can find. Living the high life.
Living the high life, yeah.
Not sure how well sardines go with rum. Thank you, Mel. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Chat next week. Enjoy the next week.
Thanks, guys.
That was Melinda Farrell in Antigua. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with two-time county championship winner Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll reflect on the USA's remarkable qualification for the Super 8s and speak with San Francisco Unicorns owner Anand Rajaraman. And I'm delighted to say now that we have, as promised at the top of the show, been joined by Anand Rajaraman, live from San Francisco, the owner of the San Francisco Unicorns in MLC. And well, Anand, my goodness gracious me, did anybody foresee the success that the USA have had in their first World Cup, reaching the Super 8s and galvanizing, I'm guessing, a following that you might have thought would have taken a year or two?
That's right. Look, we are all like, it's amazing. It's a huge accomplishment, and we are all, and it's an amazing accomplishment. I think I don't think any of us could have forecast that the strides in the national team would come so soon. We knew they would come because of the investment that's going into the national team, especially from Major League Cricket. Where with all these players, many of them whom moved to the US to play in the major league, now becoming eligible to play in the national team, like Corey Anderson, for example, who played for the Unicorns and plays for the US national team, right? And so the quality of the US national team has gone up significantly, and we expect it will continue to go up significantly over time. What was unexpected for us was how soon this has happened, that it happened in the World Cup this year.
It's fascinating to me that given the upheavals at administrative level at US cricket, that the players have performed so well. And I can only assume that that is the influence of MLC, because obviously US cricket needs to tidy its desk and its administrative affairs. But my goodness me, the players being paid a fraction of what the players from most of the other teams are being paid have performed extraordinarily well.
Absolutely. Look, it's also the players also playing for pride of the national team, regardless of what they're being paid, and it's and I'm sure that they're putting in their best. It's unfortunate that there are all these other issues surrounding it, but the players are giving it their all on the field.
So let me ask you about Pat Cummins. I mean, look, it's no secret that that a few other leagues around the world, mostly the 100 in England, are a little bit concerned about MLC. And you've signed Pat Cummins on a 4-year deal, which is a remarkable coup.
That's right. I'm delighted to have Pat Cummins join our team. As you know, he's very selective in what tournaments he plays. Pat, he's the only global T20 tournament he's playing in is the IPL right now. And then now for the San Francisco Unicorns in Major League Cricket. And frankly, it's a lot to do with our fortunate location in Silicon Valley. Right. So Pat is thinking about his career post his playing days, and he wants to be involved in Silicon Valley in technology, in the intersection of technology and sport. So he's looking to develop that relationship, and that's what enabled us to pull off that coup.
Well, a year is a long time in cricket, but 4 years is a very long time. But let's look ahead. It is a 4-year contract, and the 4th year will be 2027. Pat will have just turned 35. It's entirely conceivable that he's still playing Test cricket, maybe even captaining the Test team. So MLC would fall right in the middle of the 2027 Ashes. Did that form part of your conversation, or was that 4 years too far ahead?
Well, honestly, it's too far ahead, and obviously national duties will always trump playing for any league, right? So regardless of whether it's the IPL or whether it's the Major League Cricket, I think playing for the national team is the most important thing in cricket. And so we expect that, and we entered this fully knowing that Pat may not be available for certain seasons just because he has national duties.
So the USA qualify also for the 2026 T20 World Cup now by dint of qualifying for the Super 8s. It gives the organisation, the body, the national team 2 years to put a sort of a long-standing plan in place and look to the future.
That's right, and the Olympics are amazing as well, right? They're coming in, so it's basically 4 years now to plan for, and I think it's a crucial period for cricket in the US. One of the things that we hope will happen is the development of more cricket infrastructure in the US between now and then, in the form of stadiums that we can play in. As you can see, the ICC constructed a temporary stadium in New York for the game. But you cannot build the future of cricket on temporary stadia for too long, right? So I think investment has to go in to build regular stadia, which all the MLC teams are doing in their, they're working on in their territories to build those stadiums. And I think that will be a key part of what drives cricket forward. For example, once we have appropriate stadiums, then we can have other national sides touring the US. And playing bilateral tournaments, which I think will be key in developing the US team and taking it to the next level.
I was there at Nassau County because I just had to be. I had to see the launch of a World Cup in New York. What were your impressions? I mean, there's a massive following for the Asian teams. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh all played in New York, and there was a huge following. But the growth of the game, obviously, that can be enormously profitable and successful, given the enormous population that are already in touch with cricket. But it's only sort of 4.5 or 5 million out of 340 million. So is growth of the game still an immediate focus, or is that something for the future?
No, it definitely is a focus. And if you even see, there was an amazing article in the New York Times about this journalist who went and attended the game, and how he's a convert to cricket now because of we hope to see more such stories. And we are seeing even for our local teams, we are seeing people who used to follow baseball or other sports, sort of taking to cricket and enjoying it and so on. And initially it'll be the spectacle of the thing, maybe the atmosphere, the carnival atmosphere that draws people in, right? And then over time, I think we hope more people will get converted and become followers of the sport, right? So I think it's a journey for us, perhaps similar to where football, what's called soccer here in the US, was on back in 1994 when the World Cup was held. I was a graduate student back then here in the US at Stanford University, and I remember I could get tickets to watch Brazil play the USA for like $20. And it was amazing. And now clearly soccer is at a much different level in the US. Over the last 30 years, right? So I think this World Cup in the US is very similar to the 1994 Soccer World Cup that was held in the US and sort of catalyzed the growth of soccer in the US.
When we spoke for the first time almost a year ago, before the first edition of MLC, you were very honest about the size of your investment and also how long you expected it might take to repay itself. You did say that you thought that you might lose money for the first 3 to 5 years. Well, there's a kind of renewed sense of optimism now. Do you think it might kick off a bit better than that, a bit sooner?
Look, I think we will lose money for several years still. I think that's a given, and partly there's also. I think we will do better in terms. I'm hoping, we're already seeing momentum. We'll do better in terms of ticketing and attendance and so on at Major League Cricket. But we also have major investments that we're making in terms of building infrastructure like stadiums and so on, right? Which is big capex spending, which takes many years to pay out. So I don't think that it changes that math significantly. We're hoping the stadiums will be fuller, which is great, right? So which is awesome. But as you know, in most of these sports leagues, the majority of the revenue comes from the telecast rights deals, and we have a telecast rights deal that's signed and in place for the first 5 years of the league. So that's not going to change, right? So what we can hope for is that, you know, as more and more people watch and the audience for the league grows and enthusiasm grows, in fact, when it comes time to renew the deal, we, you know, hope to have perhaps some of the more mainstream US sports networks bidding for the deal, right? And that's really when I think we might be starting to see payback happen.
Just a quick point about sort of co-investment, privatization in the 100, and some investors in MLC are said to be interested in private investment in the 100. There's this obviously an overlap of schedule and potential conflicts of interest between the 100 and MLC. Do you think it's possible that there could be a working together and with co-investors that they would work to ensure that there wasn't a significant overlap of schedule or any overlap?
No, we should work together to clarify the schedule, and this year is particularly a difficult year for us because of the World Cup. You know, so we see our calendar as effectively being June and the early half of July, and June is taken up by the World Cup this year. So you know, that ate up a significant part of the window that we could play Major League Cricket in, which is why we have to start Major League Cricket this year, our season, on the 5th of July. Right, and then it runs to the end of July, which ends up overlapping with the 100. So I'm hoping that going forward, without the World Cup being here, we will start our season much earlier in June, and it ends before the 100. I think that's likely what's going to happen. But I think overall, I think it's time. I think somebody from the Caribbean Premier League called out for this, is that it's time for all these, you know, all the T20 leagues to sit down together and maybe with some leadership from the ICC, figure out windows that don't overlap.
And just quickly, Josh Butler has said that he'd be very interested in playing in the MLC. He's expressed enthusiasm for the tournament. I guess, you know, on the one hand, it's easy to import big names and attract an audience in that way, but it's expensive. It would be cheaper and also fulfilling to hope one day, soon or later, or in the medium term, to develop local talent.
I completely agree. And look, I think even if you see today, every MLC team needs to have 5 US domestic players in the playing 11, right? And over time, the ICC has indicated, and we are quite keen to go in that direction over time, but it goes to the same level as other international tournaments like the IPL, where there are 7 domestic players and 4 international players. And it's a matter of time as the US ecosystem develops. That we can make that transition, but we are quite eager to make it over time.
So finally, Anand, I asked you in that first interview whether, as an astute and very successful businessman and a sports lover and enthusiast, your heart had ruled your head, or your head had ruled your heart in making this enormous investment. How are you feeling now?
Look, it was definitely heart that led me into it. Right, but you know, but now that I'm there, the head is slowly, you know, doing the math and doing the sums and trying to figure out, you know, how to do this in the most appropriate manner. But all joking aside, I do think there's a very interesting prospect if all the planets align and we are able to grow the sport, and you know, one planet just aligned already with the World Cup and the USA win over Pakistan, right? So we just need a few more planets to align over the next few years for this to be a successful investment as well.
So for the moment, your focus is on San Fran Unicorns, and you don't have ambitions to get involved in other leagues or expand. You just want to build your little or your large empire in San Francisco?
Look, I think for us, I think the excitement is to grow cricket in the US, and that's our primary mission. With San Francisco being our territory with the big cricket loving base, so I see my mission as being tied to that. In terms of owning other teams, I mean, clearly the many IPL teams have shown interest in that and see that as their as their long-term play. For us, our long-term play is to grow the sport in the US with an emphasis on the San Francisco Bay Area. And this being Silicon Valley, we want to do this with a Silicon Valley flair, which is what we're trying to do, where we are trying to merge technology into the sport and try to be leaders in that and so on.
Anand Rajaraman, what a pleasure to speak to you again. Congratulations. Enjoy the cricket atmosphere. I know that the competition's moved on to the Caribbean now, but it was, I think, a qualified success in the USA. And great to chat to you, and hopefully it won't be so long before we get you on again.
Wonderful talking to you, Neil, and thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you've missed any of the show or you want to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed, as always, available via the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. And our great thanks to Anand Rajaraman, San Francisco Unicorns owner. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, and Durham Hall of Famer Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll get more reaction to Scotland hosting Australia later this summer, and we'll bring you the final word. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. You can now watch us as well on YouTube. Just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Okay, on to any other news, breaking stories that have caught our eyes, ears and attention over the last week. And delighted, Harmy, to see that that story about Australia touring Scotland.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so many associate nations have pleaded for more game time against the big teams. Do you remember when, well, you might not have seen this, a couple of days ago when Nepal lost to South Africa in that dreadful choke? And that's what it was. I mean, they had that game on a plate.
Yeah.
They said there was on the official Nepalese Rhinos Twitter account. Did you see the message? It said, don't sympathize with us, just play us more often and we might not choke.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It is. It's brilliant and it's great, especially when, you know, for like Scotland and Ireland and the Netherlands, you know, England's a big pull. And I've said many, many times, I know warm-up games are old hat now, but you don't have to play warm-up games. You can go to the associated nations and play them in competitive games. And that's what obviously Scotland are doing. Actually, to be fair, the Aussies have been telling some jokes in their press conference. Hazelwood didn't disappoint with his. Stark's gone out and said there's some great golf courses. So there's 30 players putting their hand up to go and play in them 3 T20s in Scotland. Obviously, they're going up after the England series. Mitchell Stark is right. There are some beautiful golf courses in Scotland. I'm sure Cricket Scotland are going, do you know what? We will let you play on any golf course you want as long as you come up and play cricket against us. And I think that for the Scottish people, I mean, Scottish supporters, because that's, you know, I'm probably take Durham away. I'm closer to Scotland's international, closer to Scotland's international grounds than the majority of the England ones. For where I live in Upper Ashington, and the huge amount of people in Scotland who love cricket. Our very own Ali McCoist. I mean, Ali McCoist, you know, he talks about we when the England cricket team are playing, and he's a proud Scotsman. So there's a huge amount of Scotland fans, of cricket fans up in Scotland, and it'll be great for them to get a chance to see. We don't know, but who wouldn't bank on Australia being, I mean, all format world champions? I think by the time Scotland by the time Australia go up there, so you know that could be a great draw for the people in Scotland to go and watch Australia.
Okay, Richie Berrington was amongst many excited Scottish cricket lovers, and this is what he had to say.
Richie, just how excited are you to be welcoming the Aussies later on this year?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be an awesome series. It's been a few years now since we've had Australia toured Scotland, so definitely one all the players are looking forward to, and the supporters back home. Should be a great occasion.
To get some of the more credentialed teams to Scotland, a real goal for you guys.
Yeah, we don't get these opportunities often. As I say, it's been a few years since we've had a team like Australia come across. So yeah, just another great opportunity for us to test ourselves against one of the best teams in the world. So yeah, one we're definitely looking forward to.
Looks like a pretty beautiful venue. Just for people back home in Australia, can you describe what cricket in Scotland's like, and particularly the Grange?
Yeah, look, there's certainly a lot of passion around the game back in Scotland, and hopefully there'll be even more after this World Cup campaign. The Grange, when it's full, it's one of the best atmospheres I've experienced. So we played England there, I think it was 2019. We had a packed ground that day. So yeah, hopefully it's a place we can fill out again. But it's a lovely ground. It's obviously got a good bit of history to it as well. So I'm sure the Aussie boys will look forward to playing there as well.
It's Richie Berrington, Scottish captain, looking forward to hosting Australia later on towards the end of the summer. Harmy, I have to confess, there's just so much cricket going on that I've barely been able to follow the Blast. Lancashire going well in the North Group, I see. Somerset, Surrey and Sussex beginning to run away with the South Group. Have you managed to keep up to date at all?
Yeah, I've commentated on all Durham's home games. So far, unbelievable game last night against Lancashire. I mean, it was Lancashire were out of it, dead and buried. I can't remember what the actual score was. I think it was something like 140 for 6, chasing 218. I mean, they needed 14 and over for the last 5 overs, I think. And it was like we written them off. No chance. And they needed 21 off the last over. And young Bladderwick hit the first 2 balls for 6, 21 down to 9. And you're going, 9 game on here. That was for about 6 overs, the only time I thought Lancashire had a chance was with 4 balls to go. And then he gets bowled and that's it, more or less the game over. But I was very impressed by some of the young players. Young Hurst at Lancashire. I mean, first time I seen him close up, he kept wicket for the 19s last year. I was really impressed by him. Balderston as well. He came in later on. Good Lancashire side. I can see why they're top of the group. They fell short last night against the other night against Durham. Durham seemed to play very, very well away from home and then struggled at home. So they got their first win. But I don't know if you've seen it, Manners. I was commentating at the time, and Paul Coughlin's catch. It was scary. I didn't know what to say. I thought I'd hit him on the head. And I'm like, so pleased he caught it, because the ramifications of him not catching it, it's not worth thinking about, because it was hit so hard back at him. So to react the way he did and pick it up, it was great. He's a brilliant fielder, Paul Coughlin. He's a great kid. He's a lovely lad. He can bat, he can bowl. He's had some horrendous, injuries over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. The move to Notts didn't work. There was high hopes for Paul Coughlin, but he's had a good career and he was a great fielder. But the hilarious thing was the next 3 bits of fielding he had last night after he took that unbelievable catch, the ball just went straight through him. I mean, we were joking obviously on the stream, but he let one go through one went through his legs. He went to dive and stop another one that went through him. But what a catch! He's a great kid, Coggers.
It was the ultimate caught in self-defense, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Yeah. I just, honestly, Gordon Mutchell was sitting next to me, and Gordon Mutchell was like, oh, no. He was like, oh, no, straight away, because he thought I'd hit him. And my reaction was of, shocking, but it was a split second later when I realised he's caught it. It was just an unbelievable catch. It was hit so hard.
Okay, just before we move on to the final word, Danny Hazel has been appointed Durham women's head coach to lead them in their first season being a Tier 1 team. That sounds like great news.
Brilliant news. It was obviously I think the worst kept secret in women's cricket when because Danny's been commentating with us as well. She's a brilliant coach. She's worked obviously predominantly through Yorkshire since she finished playing for England, but she is a Durham girl. She's somebody who's born and bred in the northeast of England. I think there was only ever going to be one candidate. The minute Durham put their bid in, that Danny was going to come and coach it. I think it was just a waiting for, dotting I's, crossing T's and everything. So it was good to sort of finally get it over the line that Danny Hazel, who's been coaching with the Northern Diamonds and done a lot of cricket coaching inside Yorkshire's system, is going to do the head coach's job at the Durham franchise or the Durham women's team when it comes around next year.
Okay, final word this week goes, Harmy, unsurprisingly, to two 16-year-olds. So you can comment certainly on Farhan Ahmed, Rian's younger brother, signing his first contract with Nottinghamshire, age 16, and Rocky Flintoff signing his first professional contract with Lancashire, also at the age of 16. So many congratulations to them. We know what potential they have and how talented they are. I just wondered, a lot of our listeners and viewers might be thinking, 16. Do they still sign professional contracts at 16? I think it was more common 30 or 40 years ago and before that, wasn't it? But is it quite unusual these days?
I think it is unusual, but I think it's also telling you how good these players are, how good Rocky is. Rocky's supremely talented. We've seen the headlines, and he's always going to make a headline the minute he does something special, like he gets 50, gets 100, or starts taking wickets. We ain't seen the best of Rock yet because we ain't seen him bowl. And trust me, when you see him bowl, I think the level at this minute in time is quite high. I think when you see him bowl, it'll just go through the roof. I seen Farhan Ahmed play as a 14-year-old a couple of years ago, and straight away I was so impressed by him. And I remember talking to a lot of people, and they'll go, "Well, Rian has, got on the England team. He's done very well." And I was like, "You wait till you see his brother. His brother is a very, very good young bowler, and he's a talented young batter as well." So for me, it is, I think, something not out of the blue or out of the ordinary. 16-year-old signing contracts. I think it's the level of cricket that these two kids are playing at is why their counties have gone, you know what, we're going to have to tie them down, because they are the future of this county. And I think Notts and Lancashire have got two special kids there who potentially could go on and play further honours. You don't know where their career paths are going to go. But I think because you've invested them at 16-year-old, I think that quietly tells you that there's a lot of high hopes on these two young lads' shoulders going forward. Rocky's picked for England under 19s as a 16-year-old, like his dad was. The boy has got a special talent, but you wait till you see him bowl. He's a bit like his dad, to be fair, when he's bowling, because from the age of 19 to about 23, every time Fred bowled more than 8 overs, he didn't bowl for 3 months. So they were sticking needles and jabs in him. They won't do that now. I think medical science has changed, thank God. And obviously, health and safety has changed a hell of a lot. So Rocky will be looked after a lot better than Andrew was during his informative years. But nevertheless, both of them, he is a chip off the old block. And so's his other brother, Corey, again, another one who's 18-year-old. So, and there's a good competition in that Flintoff family, because I wouldn't like to face Andrew, Rocky, or Corey. All three of them bowl a slippery, heavily ball, and even now Fred's knees are just holding up, and I'm sure he gives his own back when he's in the nets bowling at the two of them.
Well, Harmy, you've got another 4.5 hours up north on the train. It's a journey you must have done 500 times now. How do you spend the time?
Well, last night I watched England play football. First half was all right. Second half was pretty poor. So I got about, it was a 4-canner last night. I'm not sure there's 4 cans in me going back. Sometimes I must admit, man, that's once or twice during the India series. It got to a 6-canner, and there was one time it took me 11.5 hours. That was like a proper day trip, that one, when the trains were cancelled. But normally, if it's night time, it's normally 4 or 5 cans is normally involved. But today it might be a bit different. I'm sure there'll be a film, or I'll probably watch one of the average T20 World Cup games that's possibly on this afternoon.
Enjoy the trip, Harmy. We'll be back same time next week. You've been listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you have missed any of the show or you wish to catch up, you can download the podcast from the Following On feed, available as always via the free talkSPORT app. And as I said, we'll be back at a similar time next week for another busy show. But for now, this has been Following On
AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.